Mark Lenahan from Travelport. It's nice to see you, sir. Hope you're well. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of PhocusWire Pulse. Appreciate your time and appreciate Travelport's support. So,
thanks for having me.
Generally,
It's
and
good
I
to
know,
be here.
it's a pleasure to have you, sir. So, I know perhaps this is something that you can't directly speak to, but I mean, just generally, what would you say is your perspective on the current kind of startup landscape, performance during and now the early stages of the recovery? And do you sense that we're in for some kind of springboard to better times for the startup community?
Well, some of your previous speakers actually put it really well. I think it was William made the point about buying when the market is low, and in that sense, if you look at it from that point of view, the travel industry has rarely been as deflated as it was last year. And regardless of which sort of growth trajectory you think it will take, whether you think it will take a year to recover to 2019 levels or 3 years to recover to 2019 levels, it's, from an outsider's perspective or an investor's perspective, it has to be a market that's got double-digit growth in the next 2 or 3 years. And there's not a lot of markets that can offer that to an investor. So I'm not an expert in investment by any means. I mean, some of the other speakers were much more tied into that market, but that's really what I'm hoping will happen. And certainly for the startups that I work with and deal with, hopefully we're going to see a kind of an investment spring in travel tech and in the travel sector.
Okay, right. So, Mark, Travelport Accelerator was announced earlier this year.
Yeah,
it's an exciting week. I don't know how much of that detail that you can share with us about this particular week, but we'll come to that in a moment. But just talk to us, Mark, how does an accelerator work for those that are either not aware of them or are curious about them?
I think there's actually a bunch of different accelerators in the travel industry, and you can read up on what people like Hangar 51, which is the IAG accelerator, or IATA accelerator are doing. And, they do a number of different things. And some of them are investment vehicles or, investment networking. These accelerators are designed for, various venture capital or companies to take a stake in some of the participants. Others are not. Travelport's take on the accelerator is quite different from the others. We're not specifically an investment accelerator. What we're trying to accelerate is retailing in the travel industry. We're trying to bring retailing to travel agents because that's kind of aligned to our mission. I mean, our focus is on Travelport Plus. The objective with Travelport Plus is to build a platform which has the breadth of content, the retailing and merchandising capability, and unlocks value for both our suppliers and our agency customers and consumers of travel. But what we're trying to do with the accelerator is we've got to admit that when it comes to the digital transformation of the travel industry, we're not going to do everything. And I think all of the big tech companies need to realize they're not going to do everything. And you've got to come up with ways to open the door to innovation and alternative perspectives. And as our CPTO Tom Kershaw said in our little video, find new ways to solve old problems and old problems to solve in new ways. And I think you can only do that by bringing new blood into the travel industry. So that's what we're trying to do with our accelerator.
Now, it's interesting, Mark, you said there, big travel tech companies kind of opening up and stuff like that, and in a previous life, when I was with T News, we used to run hackathons, and huge credit to Travelport, I think, here. And it was, I believe, the first of the global distribution systems, as we had to call you back in those days, that decided that it was going to open up the doors to developers to come along and play with the code and create new services and things like that. And it was a fairly successful initiative that we ran for quite a while. I mean, I'm interested in that process that you talk about, this opening up part of it. does it take a lot of kind of soul searching and admission that you can't solve all these problems yourself, and you do need to kind of open up to startups and get the ideas from them? I mean, is it a psychological
Yeah,
leap that you sense that
I
you've
think
had
that
to go through?
I think there's a couple of different paths that we can take with startups, you know, and it all comes down to the challenge, which maybe we'll touch a bit more on the challenge in a minute. But
Yeah.
you know, for our first round of this accelerator, we picked something that was complementary. So you know, it isn't what we set out. What our focus is in building Travelport Plus, you know, our next generation platform. So the accelerator isn't about that. It's about, for example, you know, personalized digital marketing. So we're, in a sense, we're not setting out to deliver a marketing platform, but we also realize that you won't be a modern digital retailer without a digital marketing platform. You know, we can provide the retailing platform and we can provide the content, but we're not going to do everything. So in a sense, like, what can we set out to find? What are some of the companies, and not just startups, but cross-vertical companies in that space that we can help and empower with our data and with our APIs? And also, you know, some of the other speakers spoke about, you know, the advice to people thinking of doing a startup in travel is don't. But you know, it's quite true. There's a ton of existing plumbing in travel,
Yeah.
you know, and there's even challenges in travel that come from legacy protocols. We're still using Edifact between machines that left, you know, nobody is doing shopping or search on TPF anymore. That hasn't been the case for 10, 15 years. But, you know, we're still sending availability over these legacy protocols. It's like you have two supercomputers and you're connecting them with two tin cans and a piece of string. And, you know, we've also got these bizarre data silos in the travel industry as well. So we're looking at, you know, all of these companies that we say, well, can we provide some kind of on-ramp? Can we hold your hand, help you overcome some of the unnecessary complexity, right? Get a simpler picture of what's going on in the travel industry. You know, there's only a handful of companies that can answer a question like, how much does it cost to go to New York next weekend for anyone anywhere in the world? We're one of those companies. So can we give that data to a startup in such a way that they'll come up with new ideas on how to use it? So it's really about that. It's kind of, it's our data, it's our APIs, fine, but it's not just that. It's also the mentoring and the bringing into the travel industry, so we can kind of be that on-ramp for innovators.
So you mentioned that, you know, the overall theme is around retailing. This particular cohort that is coming to an end now is around digital marketing. And what other sectors or disciplines kind of interest you once this particular one has gone through?
I mean, we have a bunch of challenges. We have a backlog of challenges that we think we would like to work with both startups and cross-vertical tech companies on. You know, there's challenges around data. You know, there's challenges around how we collaborate with our data in the industry to improve customer experience. Great example of that, you know, is that, would you sign up for a system that told every hotel you're ever going to check into your arrival flight time and whether or not it's delayed? Such a thing doesn't exist, right? But I put it out there as an example of the kind of innovation we could do if we had better data collaboration. So that's one potential challenge. There are others, you know, sort of on our backlog, and but we're going to focus on our team of how do we make travel agencies, whether they're corporate travel or leisure travel or OTAs, and or you know, corporate booking tools. How do we bring modern digital retailing to that community and make them better retailers? You know, and you know, everybody benefits from that. Even when, you know, it's an adjacent piece of technology that we might not be building ourselves. And of course, we're open to using some of these technology providers within our own solutions as well. So it's not just a case of it'll always be adjacent. I'm sure we'll also address challenges where we're saying, you know what, let's look at a novel approach to doing X, Y, or Z that will become part of Travelport Plus, and we'll become the customer of that technology from those startups. We didn't do that in the first round, but no, that's definitely on the table for future rounds.
Is there anything that has surprised you in this first kind of 4 or 5 months of these startups that you're starting to work with?
Well, we've selected 6 finalists that we're starting to work with. I can tell you their names in a moment. We will
Okay.
we'll be announcing them earlier today formally, but I can give you the scoop here.
Please.
But but basically, my learning from this is just, you know, the wealth of innovation and cool ideas that are out there. You know, we got 84 applicants that came directly to us. You know, AWS, who are partners in this accelerator, went out to their community of 200,000 tech companies, but also with an agreed challenge to narrow that down with a bit. And there was something like 40 or 50 more companies who came in on that path and then also applied. So I think in the end, we had something like 120 applications. And I mean, getting down to 40, a short list of 30 or 40 of those was all about relevance to the challenge. And that it wasn't easy, but it wasn't especially difficult. Getting down from 30 to 6 is probably the hardest thing. The hardest thing I've had to do in the last couple of years. And, you know, Travelport have had a very interesting year. So, you know, it really was a challenge, and it just goes to show that you know, the ideas are out there, the innovation is out there. I mean, it behooves companies like Travelport, the big distributors, the big tech providers, to open our doors a little bit and let some of these companies in.
Okay, before we move on to the last part, do you want to give us the 6 names then, Mark? You're
Yeah,
itching to
so
tell us, I can tell.
yeah. So I mean, there's some interesting names here. We've got Taguchi Marketing in Australia, already you know, invested by Webjet, for example. It's one of the big OTAs in that region, and what they're doing is bringing you know, digital marketing automation to travel agents. So a ton of travel agents out there are using MailChimp or HubSpot or things like that for marketing automation, but those tools don't work with travel products, you know, and Taguchi will sort of help solve that. Another one is Stackla, recently acquired by Nosto in Scandinavia. But what Stackla essentially do is they have this sort of AI and intelligence that allows brands to go out and source genuine, user-generated content. And then they take care of actually getting permission and licensing rights to that content from the content creators, and allow brands to sort of communicate with their customers using, you know, very genuine, sort of less official looking content for example, for lots of different destinations. Another one we're talking to as well, or another finalist that participated in our pitch event, is the Data Appeal Company. Really fantastic visualizations around consumer sentiment and picking up 500 million pieces of information from Google and TripAdvisor and Facebook and Instagram every day, and then allowing that to, you know, making that visible to travel agents so they really understand what's going on at the destination level, right down to the street corner, you know, from country down to street corner. And obviously with all of these, we're looking at what's the combined proposition. If we can feed our data into this, is there something synergy that they can do something extra? Another big participant is Adobe. And that might surprise you that a company the size of Adobe would want to participate in this. You know, that's the thing I was saying. It's not about startups. It's also about cross-vertical. So Adobe have really innovated customer experience and creative design in a bunch of other sectors. And they already work with a whole bunch of travel industry companies. So I think we're accelerating with Adobe is essentially a little bit of a new idea. And you'll see that coming out in their pitch pretty soon. Dynamic Video, an interesting Barcelona startup that's really got this great idea for taking something that's normally static, which is video, and actually personalizing it. So, you know, Kevin sees his own video, Mark sees his own video, using data and assets and generating, you know, dynamic personalized video on the fly. And that's really, really impressive. And then finally, you're probably already aware of EveryMundo, work with a whole bunch of airlines. But really what the proposition there is, if we could take EveryMundo's, you know, airfare promotion capability, combine it with our data, and then give agencies the same sort of capabilities to promote destinations with prices that you see on airline websites and airline social channels. So putting all of those together, we've already had our pitch day. We've had judges from our partners, including Southwest, Amex GBT, Priceline, Christopherson Business Travel, Internova, Direct Travel. We had a recording in New York. Our pitching companies attended remotely, and we'll be releasing that as public video over the course of November, essentially like a TV miniseries.
Yeah. So you and I met when you were at OpenJaw Technologies way back when, probably 10 years or more ago. And, you've been very supportive of the startup industry. You're always tweeting a lot of events and pitch competitions and things like that. I wonder if, Mark, maybe in a personal capacity, but also in a Travelport capacity, what would you say some of the mistakes that you've seen being made along the way by people that come along with an idea for a new business, do you think?
Yeah, I'm seeing 2 minutes remaining, so this better be my good closing statement. Look, I mean, I've joined startups at the post-startup stage, early scaling stage. I think that I've been employee number 6 or 7 or employee number 20, but rarely I haven't founded it myself. I don't want to give advice to anyone who hasn't, as someone who hasn't actually been through that ringer or that sausage maker. But really, I'd say I say this at every event, come and talk to me. There's a whole bunch of people, reach out on LinkedIn. I accept every LinkedIn connection. Granted, I get a lot of people trying to sell me stuff, but talk to people. People are more willing to talk to you and hear your idea than you realize. And then listen. There's a ton of industry knowledge about why this industry is. And some of the way this industry is because it's what we're used to and it's unnecessary. But some of it is the way it is because it is necessary, and we figured out things that do work and don't work. So my advice to startups is talk to us and listen to what we tell you.
And just last of all, it's an interesting point. Would you say that compared to even 5, but definitely 10 years ago, that the industry per se, and there's always been a label put on many big tech companies about being gatekeepers. But would you say overall that the industry is more open to collaboration perhaps than it used to be? And that's perhaps something that's happened pre-pandemic. There is this realization that we are all in this together. Yes, there's capitalism and there's competition and all those kind of things, but we are generally a more collaborative industry. Would that be accurate?
I'd say we are collaborative. But I mean, it's a lot of, different startups are going to have different experiences, and in certain parts of the industry, they might find doors closing on themselves. The thing is, the barrier to entry is not a lack of collaboration in the industry. The barrier to entry in this industry is, the siloed data, the fact that there's no single source of truth. For any question, a consumer might have about travel, and then just the sheer complexity of the logistics. People ask me, investors ask me, and analysts ask me, why is the travel industry so complex? So I've come to realize it genuinely is complex. It's not just that it seems complex because we're inside it. It is more complex than finance or retailing, and it's essentially like, it's the same as FedEx or UBS, but imagine all of the parcels had minds of their own and legs, right? And that starts to give you an idea of the complexity of the industry. So I think the industry is as open as we can be, but the barrier to entry is the complexity, not the openness.
Okay, that's a great thought to end on. So Mark Lenahan from Travelport, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your support for this event. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, PhocusWire.
Okay.